Hi everybody, I'm Lee Carroll. I am the original channel of Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. These times together are so precious for us. They are different, very different, from coming in the past to a group of people and giving a message that might not be connected to anything that is germane to what follows. Out of context, you might say, all titled differently. We try to make these messages to flow into that which is the Circle of 12 meditation. If you're here in this time, watching this, then we know why. That you have an interest, an intent to hear profound messages, hopefully you understand, about yourself. Not necessarily about larger pictures of the earth or what's happening, but about something even more magnificent, and that would be you. Because you hold the key, dear ones, to the changes around you that often you believe are shaping you, and they're not. No. Your consciousness on this planet as a group of old souls all over the planet are what is shaping what is taking place. You are more in control than you think. I would like to open a door in this channel to a philosophy or a rule or an axiom that you might not have thought of, but that you know must exist. And I'm going to start by saying this. What kind of an artist are you? And you would say either, well, I really enjoy painting and I'm a pretty good one, or you might say, well, I've dabbled in it, not much, or you might say, nothing. I'm not paint, I can't paint, I never will, that's not my talent. So you know I must be talking about a metaphor, and indeed I am. The first premise is this, and you have heard this before, even from the healers on this show. Here is the premise. Everything has vibration. Now that vibration is different from what you might have studied in the dimension you live in, which would be sound or color. A vibration that you could measure, something that vibrates, that goes back and forth. I want you to think bigger than that, because even in a multidimensional setting, all dimensions feature that which vibrates. All reality that you have, that you see, all of it has something that vibrates. I once said a controversial thing: the rocks are alive. The rocks vibrate with I would say not a life force, but a force that tells you whether they're alive or not. Even the rocks, they vibrate. In physics, if you know about atomic structure, you know a rock vibrates. You know the density. You know all of these things. There's vibration in everything. Let's look at you in 4 dimensions and music. I go here because this is so obvious to all of you listening. You have some favorite songs, perhaps. Perhaps they're not even songs. Perhaps they're just music of some kind that doesn't necessarily sing a lyric or go to a verse or a chorus, but it's just music that you just enjoy listening to. And it might be complete. It might have lyrics, but something uplifts you. Every single one of you. And you're so different. The difference in the music would reflect the difference in that which your experience is, or perhaps your age, but all of you have something you want to listen to because it makes you feel good. So tell me, why does it make you feel good? And that is something I wish to speak of. The why is a system. There is an interface between things that vibrate and your consciousness. There is an interface between those things that vibrate. Remember what I told you vibrates? Everything. And you and your consciousness. This means, by the way, your consciousness has a vibration. And when these overlap, you feel it. You have things that make you feel uplifted and good, and you go to them over and over because they do make you feel a certain way. The opposite can be true, especially with music. And those who would score films would know it. They have music and they'll say, well, I need something now that tells you something is coming, something is sinister, something is dark or whatever. And there'll be music that will target that. And your consciousness and your subconscious will hear that in a film and go, oh, and the idea of it will then match what happens in the story. That's vibration. It's profound. Let's talk about vibration in a movie or a story or a book. The vibration of the adventure. Do you know that stories and their outcomes have vibration? What are the most uplifting stories that you can think of on this planet? Many times they are in the periodicals you read or the poetry that you love, the books, the movies, and they're uplifting stories and you want to read them again and again. Oh, you'll say, I love this part. Look what happens here. Sometimes they're romantic and they'll touch your heart. A story carries vibration. There are those famous writers who have decided that their stories are dark. And they carry a certain kind of vibration, which is the human story, perhaps. Perhaps it's a tragedy, and they do these things over and over and write tragedies only. But you have to admit, there is a vibration there. Some of you will see a film or hear some music or perhaps read a story that affects you so that you can't forget it. It's not necessarily uplifting, but you can't forget it because it's the story of another human, perhaps, who went through something, and you relate to it. The story has an interface to your consciousness, and it sticks. It sticks there, and you remember it, and you remember it. If someone has told you something specifically horrific about something that happened to them or their friends, it sticks with you, doesn't it? That interface is part of what I am going to speak of. What kind of a painter are you? And the reason I'm saying this is because I would like to tell you your story, your emotions, all that you believe and do in your life is a vibration. It's like a canvas and a brush, but instead of the colors or perhaps the tunes you might paint on the palette, you paint a attitude, a belief. We have told you before, even in these programs, the vibration of joy, the vibration specifically of laughter, the healing attributes of both of those things well known. How can you hear someone laugh and suddenly you change? That's the interface. The laughter, the story of the laughter, it has a vibration. And that vibration then goes up against, if you want to say, or interfaces or intermingles with your consciousness. That's the system. Whatever the vibration is presented to you as a human being in a multidimensional state of awareness and consciousness, and it affects you. Sometimes it affects you, again, in an uplifting way, and sometimes it doesn't. The storyteller understands that. The artist who paints a picture and uses light in a certain way makes it so that you can go to a gallery and watch the painting, and you look into it and you understand what that artist is trying to say and do. And many times you weep with joy because you finally see what the artist is trying to tell you in the vibration that is uplifting, and it goes into your consciousness. Ask anyone who appreciates art. In a gallery, looking and looking. Look what that light does. Look at how it is dark over here, but it shows the light so clearly here. It means something. What kind of an artist are you? The palette that you paint on is a vibrational attitude of how you live. Also, how you approach programs of life that are always there. When you get up and you go to sleep, and you perhaps go to work, or you simply are taking care of things, or at a time like this you call COVID and things are different, you have the ability to paint a picture to everyone around you. What kind of an artist are you? Have you painted your despair to everyone so they could see it, broad brush? Have you then dipped into the darkness and painted as fast as you can so everyone can see how disappointed you are, or how fearful, or how ugly you think the situation is? What colors are you using? So you or your children, or perhaps you're older and don't have the children, perhaps a partner, and if you don't have a partner, you have friends, or those even at the store. What are you painting to them? Can they see your smile? During a time when many are wearing masks, can you show them you're smiling anyway? What colors are you using to portray? You have a palette. And old soul, this is the one we speak of. Is it uplifting, healing, joy? Do you laugh a lot? Do you show others you're not afraid, that you have something inside that's worth knowing about? Because of this, dear ones, I'll tell you, those around you and your children and your friends and your legacy will see a picture of you long after you're gone. What do you think they'll see? What kind of an artist are you? These are the things we speak of in these days. They go beyond that which perhaps you have thought of in the past, but they're all the same. They all speak of the magnificence of the human being. And so it is.
Take a breath. Take another breath. And let yourself go more deeply into this place of being honored, being activated by the Star Mothers. Feel the energy in the room and know, without thinking, that they are with you. They are with us. There is a light and a love from the hearts of the Star Mothers that surround this family. It comes from within us, that spark, that sweet, soft star seed that has been left with us all these millennia and is now opening, awakening into a flame of divine love that is in front of you as you live your life each day with your own wisdom. What you learned those many, many millennia ago is inside of you, and it's ready to come forward for you to live as each moment.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It's not a long channeling, but it's important, especially for those who would call yourself old soul, or would sit here or listen and say, I am indeed a worker of the light. If you have come across this particular message, dear ones, and you don't know what an old soul is or a light worker, and you don't call yourself one of those, this may be a mystery. But we are talking mostly now, to this particular group in this city of Columbus, Ohio. The area is specific. All areas contain attributes that are different, dear ones, because you're in a different part of the continent or your family or your group or even of the planet. Sometimes a city will have collected together as a population and you wouldn't know it, but it's connected to another city through a strand that goes through the earth in a way that I cannot explain to you, and will come out the other side, not necessarily in a straight line. And there will be a confluence of consciousness where you will affect another city for what you do here. Sometimes you pull together areas around you. You are the hub, many times, of energies completely around you, depending upon where you are on the planet, depending upon the consciousness that is here. And we have said this wherever we have gone. My partner has put me into some places that were so profound, especially those places in Europe which have a history that is grand and great. It is 5 and 6 times as long as yours here. And you can imagine the things that have happened there and the culmination of energies that pile up there and the work that has to be done there. You can imagine the number of portals, if you want to call them that. They're focused energy points that might move around there, that light workers like you are put there for, so they can work with them. Again, I tell you, if you've just come across this message, that's going to sound odd and strange. How do you work with a portal? And the answer is carefully. But with energy, you understand. Oh, old soul worker of the light, you know what to do. You become an anchor. You can imagine your hands stretched out, and in each hand you're holding things together. And that might sound odd or strange, but you know it's true. And that's what you do. Some of you know that you're put in a place to anchor, to hold together. And you are. And you stay put because of these things. Others of you feel that you are here to create an energy or hold an energy that perhaps would change if you weren't here. Now that's the simplest form of this I can give you. It's complex. Some of you are the New Age gypsies, and you understand you must move around. And the moving around is because you have something to offer wherever you go. And you might come to one place and you know you're finished and you go to another. This is a great consternation, perhaps, to your partners. We're happy wherever they are, just in time for you to say, we're leaving. But this is an old soul's intuitive attribute. It borders on mastery, that of knowing what you're doing, why you're here. In the audience, there are channelers, there are healers, there are readers. But you all are what I'll call creative energy. You're all creative, all of you. Creatives are a special breed. Old souls, not all of you, understand this. Some old souls are very linear because they must be in order to fit in with the rest of the earth. And your part in all of this is to carry that which is beautiful and practical and lovely to your workplace, to your children, to those around you who perhaps would never be in a meeting like this. And you wouldn't understand holding energy for the planet. You'd understand creating a loving energy in your workplace. You might be concentrated on 5 people or 10 people for most of your life, and you will affect them, dear ones. And then there are others that feel the burden of thousands. And both of you have tasks which absolutely are commensurate with your consciousness. And that means that you're never given a metaphysical task that is beyond that which there would be the desire of who you are. I want to take you for a moment to the consciousness of an artist. Let's make it a painter or a composer or a sculptor or a writer. And they all have something in common. They're creatives. And I want to tell you what their process is. And some of you will relate to this, listening or hear. And here is the process. It takes several hours, sometimes, to work your way into a pure creative energy. Let's say you're a composer or a writer. This is very common because there are more of you than sculptors and painters. And you get to that place and in comes the flow. And boy, can you feel it. Now, at that moment, at that second, you know it's happening. And you're flowing with it. I'll tell you something that I know that no one would know unless they were standing there, observing there. Sometimes you're laughing because it feels so good. There's joy in the flow, and you're writing and you're composing. And you know it. And in comes the magic of the intuition. And you go, and sometimes hours will go by, and you're not aware. You're just going. Sometimes you'll miss a meal, or 2 or 3. Sometimes a day will go by. And if there's no one to interrupt you, you'll stay in that place, and out will flow, and out will come beauty. What's the worst thing that could happen during that time? And the answer is the phone rings. Or someone comes into the room. Because that's where you want to be alone. But at some level, you know you're not alone. You're not alone at all. There is something with you that supports you. And in that support, dear ones, there's not anger or seriousness. There's joy. Because you're in the flow. Now that's a creative human. It has nothing to do necessarily with being a channeler or being a healer. And yet it does, because they are channeling their work. A writer, a painter, a sculptor, a poet, they're all channeling their work. And if you stop and you analyze and ask any of them intellectually what truly is happening when you're in that state, every single one of them will tell you it's a state where I receive things that are not my own. They come from somewhere else. Some of the most beautiful melodies that will stick with you for life have come from that place. From composers both alive and passed over that will come back, both in classical and popular music, channeled. And when you sing them to yourselves, you'll feel a little bit of that peace and the joy, won't you? It soothes your soul to hear them over and over, doesn't it? That's the power of channeling. So now you're a metaphysical worker, and this audience or listening, I want you to apply the same attributes because they're there. You get to a certain place in that creativeness that is your own. And suddenly you know you have help, and suddenly you don't want to be disturbed. You don't want the phone to ring. You don't want anybody to say anything because it rips you out of that space. How do you know, channeler, healer, reader, writer of spirituality, how do you know when you're in that place? I will tell you, the first thing you will feel is joy. If you don't feel joy, you're not quite there. Or you're taking it too seriously. Because the true attribute of the purity of the creative source is release. And you release all of the burdens that you have in order to do the work. And here's what I want to tell you, because there are some of you that carry the burdens right into it. Let's say that you were a holder of the energy of this planet, of this area. Let's say you're an architect, and you know what that means. Let's say that you are part of holding things together, old soul, and you know it. And you say, I'm tired. Let me ask you, what are you tired of? When there's joy and there's magnificence and you're working the puzzle in those attributes, how can you be tired of joy? And the answer is because in the old energy, it was a lot more work than it is now. Did you hear what my partner said earlier today about the energy has changed and your relationship to it has changed? Therefore, holding things together doesn't require heavy lifting anymore because you have changed. Your magnificence, dear ones, is amplified in this new energy. If you don't know that now, it's time you did. It's time you claimed it and stopped being tired when you hold the energy. And understand that there is joy here. It's a place where you want to be. An old energy idea is that it's exhausting. There used to be an idea that if you saw a channeler, the channeler would sit in the chair, and by the time they were done, they were exhausted. Ask my partner. He gets out of the chair. Figuratively, he wants to go to the disco. It's invigorating. Later in the day, he'll crash. But right afterwards, it's invigorating. I have told him this. I said, when you sit in that space, you don't age. Stay there. You sit in that space. Where he is right now, there's a bubble around him. Then he's not going to age. Not when he's sitting in the chair. Not when he's doing this. Because there's a bubble around him. A creative bubble that says, things are different. There's a sacred creative energy that sits upon you. And there's joy that comes in. And you can't help but tell all those around you that it's there. Healer, listen, it's the same. When you walk into the room, reader, it's the same. The one sitting in front of you, perhaps you've never seen them before, they walk in the door. I want you to suspend all of those thoughts that say, well, here's what's going on with them. Well, I'm looking at their face. Well, I feel this energy. Instead, I want you to suspend it and go to that place of joy and read them. And their mouth will hang open when you tell them their life. Because that is the power you have in this new energy that you didn't even think you had. Healer, I want you to think of what you normally do, and I want you to multiply it 2, 3, 4 times and expect that. And don't be shocked when it happens. All of you, no matter what you're doing, old soul, light worker, no matter what you're facilitating, astrologer, tarot reader, whatever you're facilitating, whoever it is, the human being in front of you, I want you to expect something far grander and greater than you have ever seen before. This is an energy since 2012. It's only 7 years old, and already you feel the amplification. The amplification is you. Because the darkness of this planet is starting to subside. And there are those of you who say, wait a minute, I don't believe it, I watch the news. I will say it again. Did you really expect an angel to come down and touch the planet and everything would be just wonderful? In a practical way, you're experiencing a 12-year reboot. And that means that all the darkness, all the issues, all the problems that have all been there will come oozing out of the woodwork in ways you never expected, will shock some of you. The issues that you're having, whether they're in politics or business, that are brand new, whether they're in social things that are brand new, and you're watching the darkness ooze out and expose itself finally. That is what I'm talking about. And you're going to see more. Certain systems are broken. And you're realizing that. They're not working like the design was in another energy. They're not. You got to redesign them. Some of them have to almost completely break before you can fix them, and some of them you'll catch them in time. But that's what this reboot is about. Meanwhile, if you're a light worker, if you're a healer, if you're a channeler, all that you are will start to enhance, and some of you will start to ask questions. What's happening? I've told you this before. Isn't it odd that when things change, especially spiritually, the first thing a human does is say, what did I do wrong? You realize, don't you, that's built in. Change, especially spiritual change, often comes with an attribute that will poke the self-worth of an individual into a place where they'll say, I'm not really certain I'm doing it right anymore because it's changed. We told you before that it's like the radio station you were tuned into. The spiritual station has gone to a higher frequency, but your receiver hasn't. And the idea is find the new station. And there'll be many of you who say, well, how do I do that? And it's so simple. Ask where it went. And say, dear Spirit, I want the new station. I'm standing ready with all the talents of an old soul. Show it to me. And it won't be long before it tunes itself in. But you got to be ready for change. You can't say, well, tune me to the new station and keep everything the same. But you do, don't you? Human nature does not accept or want or like or realize change. Not really. And so this is the plea to those in the audience, to the old soul, to anyone listening to this who is a worker. Open yourself up to things you don't expect, and don't cling to what always worked. Expect more. There's two people sitting in front of me right now that have a project that you're thinking about doing. And there's worry. Will it work? Will it not work? One of you tried it before and it failed. My message to you too, go for it. And you will find an energy open up that you didn't expect, because it's time, dear ones. The path has been greased with the 2012 energy, with the darkness starting to diminish. The light is coming on. Projects now will succeed where they didn't before, on an individual basis. Things are different. Things are different. This message I've given before, and I'll give it again. I'll give it again and again, because so many have to hear it, who have come into this planet, who are now realizing why they're here and what's happening to them. Blessed is that human being who wakes up to the magnificence of who they are and what's possible in the joy and the love of God at this time on the planet. And so it is. And so it is.
I invite you to place a hand on your heart and close your eyes. And just allow a few moments for your breathing to soften. Taking in a breath through the nose, releasing it softly through your mouth. And as your body starts to relax, your breathing deepens, you can gently place your hand in your lap. You've given a beautiful signal to your body that you are in a safe place. And in this beautiful, safe place, let us now welcome in the message from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The channel is basic, but it's something you need to hear, and you need to hear it often, all of you. How many of you feel isolated? Isolated perhaps in a way that is beyond that which simply is a human in your body, in your civilization, in your society. How many of you feel isolated perhaps from everything that's happening? I want to give you some perspective. That isolation is a result, dear ones, from what you've been told. That you feel perhaps that you're not included in some way. There have been many, millions, over these many hundreds of years that have been given information in a profound way that sticks in your psyche. You grow up being told things and they stick, and they can't unstick, and you can't unknow them. And most of you have grown up feeling that you are isolated from that which is the Creator. This creative source which we talk about, which made the heavens and the earth, and the source did. That in the process of making the heavens and the earth, I've told you, that souls always existed. They were not created separately. Now, this is very difficult for some of you to understand. You'll say, well, didn't that happen in the Garden of Eden when God put us here? No, dear ones, that did not. That's another story. But that particular story is when you got your soul. When the human race itself got that soul, which is eternal. That soul existed, always did. That soul existed before there was time. If I said it always was and always will be, you have trouble with that, just in general. Humans in general look at everything linearly. Everything must have a start, a beginning, everything. And everything that you look at is as simple as a piece of string. It has a beginning and an end. It has to. And the string has a length. It has to. That's the 3D of you. But if we say to you, in a multidimensional world, when you speak of the things of God, that there is no beginning, how does that make you feel? You'll say, well, I can't really get a grasp on that. You're right, you cannot. But assume that it's correct, and assume this, that this Creator who created the heavens and the earth had a situation, if you want to call it, where you were part of it. You were there at the soul level. What if souls were part of God? What if the creative source itself is a collection of souls, as well as the beauty and the power and the splendor of the creative source itself? What if it's a system of love that's always been? If you're feeling isolated or perhaps small, or you think that there's a separation between you and God, I want to put this in perspective. I'm going to give you a truth now that is beyond anything that you were ever given by any doctrine on the planet. Are you ready? When things were void and there was no universe, and God created that which was the universe, and God created that which is the galaxies and all the parts, and the incredible amount of time that it took, and when God created your sun, and then when God created your earth, in the Genesis area that you read about and you think about, what I want to tell you is you were there. All of you were there, and you watched it. You saw the majesty of it, the beauty of it. You saw the earth being molded for you. You knew that you would come into this place with a test of light and dark. You knew what you would go through. But more than that, you saw it going on all through the galaxies, all through this one. And long before this earth was ready for you, you were participating in that, many of you, in other planets, in other areas. How does that make you feel? I want to tell you how big you are. Enormous. And I don't mean your size. I mean your lineage, your history, your beauty, your splendor. Your soul is magnificent, and so are you. And so all of these things, you were there. The story of the Garden of Eden, of Adam and Eve, is a metaphor, dear ones. It's not that far off. That scripture has some actual meaning and truth, because so many times the ancient scriptures, no matter where they are, of the beginnings of things, have elements of truth to them that stick. But most of them are metaphoric. And so when you hear about that, which is the Garden of Eden, that's the planet, of course. You hear about Adam and Eve, that's all men and all women, of course. That's the metaphor. And you hear that an angel came down and imbued both of them, or all men and women, with something they never had before. It was time for them to receive their soul. The divinity then became something that was part of you. And even your DNA changed at that moment in time. That's when you got your soul. You were standing in line for that one, dear ones. You were there. All of you were there. Not just a few. Not just a few that came to earth. All of you were there, looking in, looking down, if you wish to say, watching the process until it was your turn to come into this planet at whatever time it was to come in. So many of you that I'm talking to are what I would call old souls. I'll say it again. This is a school. The more lifetimes you've had on this planet, the more experience you've had. And it's cumulative, and you remember enough of it from lifetime to lifetime that you start understanding how things work. One of the things that carries over from life to life is your spirituality. Those of you who are shamanic, who asked the right questions, who learned about the energies and all the things you talk about today, that stuck. It was inside your DNA, inside your memories, at the cave of creation. What I'm saying is, you pick it up when you come in your next lifetime, and you carry it. Your search for God is innate. It's intuitive. And those of you who did it lifetime after lifetime, you come in and do it again. That sticks. The wisdom that you've learned for certain things, that also sticks. Dear ones, we've told you some amazing differences in this new energy, especially what you carry in with you, and one of them is a new tool. That those who will come in now, and those of you leaving and coming in again, will never have to learn the things you've learned this lifetime in any form. It all sticks. That's new. That's a new paradigm. That's a new energy. That's what the new magnetics of your earth are about. all of that, so that you're going to have more light in the future than you've ever had on this planet. That's where this is going. But in all of these things, I tell you, you were there. You are not disconnected from any of these processes. Part of the issue and the plan, the system, you come into the planet and much is hidden. We have even given many channels about the hidden things, if you recall. And part of that is who you are. But I'm here to tell you who you are. The magnificence goes beyond anything you can imagine. I'm telling you. You saw it all. You saw it all. You are ageless. When you leave this place and go back to that soul level, you will continue forever. There is no end to your existence. There was no beginning at the soul level. And that soul level is becoming more and more available for you to touch. Over a year ago, I told my partner to create the Circle of 12, the beginning of touching your soul. And that within that, there could be miraculous healing of all kinds. Healings of the fear, perhaps, that you have today, of the uncertainty, not just of your body. To have peace where there is no peace, that is a major healing, dear ones. To have joy when you haven't had joy, no reason to have joy, that's a major healing. It's not just corporeal things. It's about you realizing your profundity on the planet. You were there. You were all there. Bigger than you think, more included than you think, with guides and angels and an entourage around you everywhere you walk, waiting for you to acknowledge them or know that they're there, or be more aware and more informed about actually who you are. It is a spectacular truth, dear ones, and you were there, all of that. How can you be more aware of this, you might say? How can I feel more included, you might say? Why don't you ask for it? Dear Spirit, you might say, help me to understand and feel who I am and the lineage that I carry of humanity. Help me to have peace over these things and know that I'm included and loved dearly. Help me to feel the entourage with me all the time and relax over the things that I am not relaxing about. Help me to understand my eternalness and the light that I carry for the earth. That's a good place to start. You're asking for things that are willingly going to be given to you. We've been waiting for a lot of you to ask. And that's the truth of the day. That's the biggest truth I could give you today. You were there for all of it. I'm crying in love with humanity. And now you know why. There's a lot to love. And so it is.
And with that, I invite you to close your eyes. And as you tune in to the frequency of your body, if you imagine within you a crystalline structure that is listening and attuning to every vibration and frequency that you create, the sounds that come out of your mouth, the vibrations it creates in the air with the words you choose, are programming the crystalline structure within your body. What words do you choose to use in your daily life? What words do you choose to use to others in your daily life? What vibration and frequency do you wish to program within the crystalline structure of your body? And the crystalline structure within your body also responds to the energy you vibrate from the core of your being. When you are in the vibration of joy, laughter, and happiness, the crystalline structure within your body is feeling that, recording that, holding that memory. When you have periods where you have grief, anger, sadness, your crystalline structure also feels that, but the energy of love and joy and happiness has the ability to neutralize that emotion. The inappropriate emotions within your body are able to be neutralized by surrounding it with love, joy, and happiness. So if you imagine laying foundations for your crystal, imagine that every time you have joy or laughter and happiness and compassion, you're adding a new stripe within your crystal. And in this new energy, we are being attuned to the crystalline field of the earth, and the light-dark ratio of that crystalline grid has changed. There is more light on that crystalline grid than what there is darkness. And as you attune to the vibration and frequency of the Earth's new crystalline grid, you have a resource there you can connect to in those moments where you can amplify the joy. Because joy is sacred. It is one of the core teachings from the Pleiadian star mothers. Joy is sacred. And if you can sustain joy, you will live longer. If you can sustain joy, you will chase away any disease within your body. And so let us all hold on to that frequency, that vibration of joy, that child life that we have within us, where everything is in awe and wonder and magic and holds infinite possibilities. And from that place of infinite possibilities, let us welcome in Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. You might have noticed something that we've spoken about, my partner has spoken about, but there are those here who need to hear it. My partner does not prepare for channeling, and many do. There are those who have to prepare and take a few moments in order for them to go from one energy to another to receive what they're receiving. This has been very, very common through the ages of those who would channel. Even the shamans will do that sometimes before ceremony, to get rid of that which they consider a worldly countenance and go into that which they say is a sacred countenance. It makes sense. You might notice my partner doesn't do that. It was some years ago when I told him something that he then equates and relates, and I want you to hear it. And it has to do with the shift, and it has to do with the energy. It has to do with you. I told him it was time to go to the next level. He was disappointed because he thought he was at the top level. This is very human to not understand that the top level, he would vanish, he would ascend, he would disappear. That's the top level. When mastery is not even enough, And you go into a place and a time where you cease to be human and go back to your soul. That's the next level. That's the top level. And he asked what it was that I was talking about, and I said, "You're playing church." And he said, "What does that mean?" And he said, You say I'm playing church. I have nothing to do with church." And I told him that he shows up and channels, and then he gets off, and he's Lee. And then he shows up and he channels, and then he gets off the stage, and then he's Lee. And I said, it's time for a meld of mastery, so that the Kryon energy is with you all the time. And like you were turning on a water spigot, you simply turn it on. And it's there, and the source comes from that which is in you. And at that point in time, he said something funny, which is very common for my partner. He asked me, would it hurt? And I told him he'll live longer if he does it. I told him he'd be healthier if he does it. I told him all the cells of the body are waiting for it. And he did that. And it took time for him to understand what the meld meant. But he changed, and he was a different person at that point. My partner has gone through a number of phases of changes, just like you have. He's never done, dear ones, just like you are never done. And in that, it is an example of what we are saying even to you today. Do you come to a meeting like this to respond to the energy and to feel that which is the love of Spirit surging through you and the information warming your heart, and then you leave without it? Until the next meeting where you do the same thing, and it becomes something that feeds your soul. There are those also who are what I would call New Age information junkies, who simply want new information, and it seems to feed that intellectual of theirs. But it stops at that, and they never then receive that which is the love that goes with it, or the message that goes with it. And the message is, take this information and change your heart. That is the whole reason for this, all of this. All of the joy, the fun, the laughter, the instruction, the feeling of the compassion, the love that I would present to you, all of this is a package that challenges who you are and the meld that is possible. The mountaintop experience is what some of you have in this experience, and that is to say, it's a high for you to be here. It's a high for you to be in the presence, perhaps, of the channeling and the channelers, those who are with the family of Kryon, and you come and you have this mountaintop experience, and then you leave and it's gone. That is human nature. There is no admonishment. It's human nature. You have to unlearn that and understand that the energy that you feel here, are you ready? I want you to take this home with you. The energy you feel here, imbued into you, can be permanent. You take it home. All of the information that has been presented goes into that, which is that, your psyche. And you may not remember all of the facts and the figures, perhaps even the concepts or the names, but it all went in. And you can't undo it. You heard it, you reacted to it. That's permanent if you wish it to be. And you carry around what you've learned from it, or the feelings you had when you learned it. You don't have to repeat it to anyone. You don't have to repeat it to yourself. You don't have to run home and write it down. It's in there at some level. You realize that. This is an experience that has gone into your psyche and stays. And the invitation in this shift, in this new age, is to take it to yourself and put it metaphorically into your heart in a way that it can pour out at any time, in any place, in the same fashion that you received it today. But let it pour out in that which is experiential. You run into a situation which is hurting your heart, or worse, it is confrontational, or something that is designed to make you uncomfortable or angry or fearful. And at that point in time, you can either go to those places or you can go to this place. And if you go to this place in those situations, let it pour out. And in that time, you react differently than is expected. Your reaction is kindness, or compassion, or understanding, or perhaps even silence. When you're expected to react, you don't. Instead, you observe and you think about, what could I do, which is the most benevolent thing at this point in time. And sometimes, dear ones, it's nothing. So instead of responding, reacting, defending, or any of those things, sometimes it's nothing. And there are those who will say, there's that person who will not then defend themselves. And I'll tell you, a master does not defend themselves. And a master often will be silent, even though there are those around him who will say, well, that's a sign of weakness. I'll tell you what it's a sign of. It's a sign of mastery. And in their mind, that weakness that they see is old energy response conditioning. You didn't do what they expected in an old energy, that an old energy human being would do. What you do instead is something that you know is appropriate for the time and sacred for the time, no matter what they think, no matter what they do next. This is the new human. To understand that you take these things with you and you live on a day-by-day basis with them. I was telling my partner, he was playing church, and this is what it is. You dress up and go to a building and you hear a channeling in a situation and whatever, and you leave. Until the next time, not understanding that you're supposed to take it with you. And he was guilty of the same thing. He was turning me on and off in his life as a channel on stage to many, until I told him, you can't do that. It's time for me to be with him all the time. There'll be situations where I speak through him and you're not aware of his channeling. And this happens constantly. It may happen tomorrow. This is what he carries, dear ones. That is in addition to what you think you see. That is what appears sometimes when he is not necessarily ready for it. But he is aware of it. And slowly he changed to the one that you see now. And that'll be different even next year, and the next year, and the next year. Because these things then graduate. So let me tell you about yourself. There is a system where the light starts to increase. And this is the metaphor from yesterday. And that light starts to increase within you by itself because you're using it. Now, this is not a three-dimensional idea. In 3D, anything that you put inside of you is usually then used. And you have to put it in again and again. Or in the case of a lamp that you have to restore the kerosene, it burns up. And then you have to fill it up again. This particular idea is a human being, three-dimensional concept paradigm. What I'm telling you now is that the light that you carry today and the things that you learn every day will start to grow within itself. It'll grow by itself. And the maturity and the things that you learn along the way may come through your intuition, and you never come to a meeting like this again. And you'll start understanding things are changing within me, you'll say. And I don't know what is next or how it's working, but I seem to be in a gradual state of awareness. And it's changing how I feel even about those I'm with. This is you. Because this is the new lighthouse. A lighthouse that generates more light than is available. Did you hear that? Where 2 + 2 = 5. and then it's 6, and then it's 7. Self-generating light. And that's because you looked, dear ones. This is where those who are with you come into play. We told you in a previous channel in this room that you come in with an entourage. And that when you start to avail it, and you start to then have energy from it, and you start to say yes, and you ask for guidance, and it starts to work in your life, that's because they are feeding you with more light. This is the entourage that you ask for, that slowly, with you, starts to give you more than you thought was there. And you start to understand, I'm more than the sum of the parts. And what that means is, I seem to have more light, more awareness. Things are happening in my life that I didn't even know that I could create. And that's because you're learning to create them. Some of you are receiving things you didn't even ask for, but you did at a certain level. As soon as you say yes to one thing, dear ones, the guides and the angels will give you as much as you can take. Did you hear that? As soon as you say yes to Spirit, which is to say, I am interested, the guides will pour to you all that you can accept. Some are saying, I'm getting more than I ask for. No, you're not. Learn to deal with it. No, you're not. Some are starting to realize, who are new to this, that you're coming into what you're here for. Can you imagine my partner's whole idea of what was going on when he sat in that chair when he was in his mid-40s? When his career had been established? When some people are actually starting to plan for retirement in 20 years? His life started over. And he actually said to Spirit, I'm too old to start something. And I told him, you have plenty of years, and I'll give you more the longer you do it. And now he understands all of that. He understands that the energy levels are being given as needed, as needed. He understands all that I told him from so many years ago, and it took him a long time, that you're never too old to start. And then when I told him what he would do the next time he arrived on the planet, he understood and realized that everything he does to his last breath is a preparation for what's to come. And that is another concept that you do not want to think about, because you think of your own self and your own personal idea of who you are as in this life. Because the next life is hidden from you. The concept, perhaps, of changing and coming and going and becoming young again and all the things that you look forward to are hidden completely. They're not in your psyche. This is the way it should work, so that you're on your own this lifetime, not knowing what happened last time or the next time, not having any idea. On your own, meaning it's time now for you to make the decisions this lifetime. Is it possible that this light that you carry enhances your biology to the point where you'll live longer because of it? And the answer is yes. And here is why. These things I have talked about only briefly before. Is there a consciousness in your cells? The answer is yes. It has a name, and you've used it loosely, and it's called innate. Your cells represent a smart body. It is the attribute that homeopathy counts on. There's so many things that talk to innate or smart body, dear ones. And one of them is your own consciousness. When you give the affirmations that you give out loud, you are addressing that which is your smart body, your cellular structure, even your subconscious. All of those things, you will say, and a psychologist would say, are not addressable directly. That there have to be other things you do that help address them, and they'd be correct. So in that, I am telling you that your cells are intelligent beyond what you give them credit for. I'll say this again, and I've said it before. A human being in an older energy tends to live in their head. That's where everything is. That's where you hear everything, taste everything, see everything, all the pleasure centers, it's all there. And they tend to look down at the rest of their body and say, I hope it works, and I hope it makes it. Thinking that they are only with their brain. Very, very common. And this is then enhanced by every single medical commercial you see on television. You're not responsible, it's not your fault, so you have to then drug yourself to make that body work. So your very own society enhances this old energy paradigm. The truth is this, it's a whole body experience right down to your toenail. They all know who you are. Every single cell is waiting for the boss to talk to it. And we've given this message so many times, but in this time, it's slightly different. This intelligent body knows of your awareness. If you wish to talk to it, it helps a lot. If you wish to take this light you have and then spread it around your cells and your body, to thank every organ, to thank every limb, to actually address your body, thank you for working with me. Thank you for all you're doing, cells. Together, we're going to live a long time. And what happens is this message plus the affirmations goes into the system of health in you. And balance starts to occur. Not only balance, intuitive ideas of what to change in your life that might help will also occur. Perhaps that is eating different. Perhaps that is moving to another place. All of these things come from your cellular structure talking to your innate, talking to your intuition, and it goes right into that mind of yours, and you get an idea. That's your cellular structure talking to you. And so I'll say it again. Light workers will live longer if they accept the meld, and they understand what that is. And they cognize God as a partner, not as a deity in the sky who's going to reward or punish them later, but as a partner in life to the degree that they cannot separate themselves from this wonderful, beautiful feeling of God, of spirit, of a creative source. Oh, if you could see yourself as we see you, it'd take your breath away. We have known you for eternity. Soul, you were created in love. Soul, you were created to be a part of the soup that is the creation itself, filled with love, compassion. And we all have our hands out in this shift, saying, please, at some point in time, take a look at what's really there. How old you might be, how wise you might be, what you've been through, not here, but in many universes to precede this one, and how long you will exist after that. Eternal you are in both directions. And in all of this, you might see your magnificence and gasp at how beautiful we see you. And that might influence who you think you are. And what will happen next in your life, or what you can do you didn't think you could do. And that's so much. Light is so powerful in these dark times. Darkness will run away from you wherever you walk, eventually, and that's called mastery. And mastery is not that which means walking on the water and attracting millions. It means one day at a time with God as your partner. And a love that doesn't go away, and joy that doesn't go away, and help when you need it, and a longer lasting life. That's how we see you. And the message is, please see yourself in the same way. And when you do, you'll know exactly what this message is all about. I am Kryon in love with humanity. And so it is.
Well, it's hard to believe, but we are now needing to move into a meditation and a channel. But to help us get into that space, I want to share with you some miracle moments that have happened from two people that reported them on our Facebook group. So just tune into the energy of these two stories of some miracles that people have experienced in their life. This first one comes from Pulo. Pulo says, I was diagnosed with depression in 2020 after my husband left me. Then my younger sister introduced me to Lee Carroll and Kryon. I started listening to Healing Wednesdays and Kryon channelings, and I have never had to take any medication again. I am now a healer through my healing. How beautiful. And then we have Amir. Hello. It's a pleasure to share with you. This is my miracle, a miracle that changed me completely. One night, I woke up to the warmth and overflowing in my soul. I actually saw that a bird flew out of my soul. I got up and I followed her. She flew out the window and flew high into the sky, and she became a star. This is a joy. I feel a boundless and great love. These divine visions are healing me. I will be cured and healed in my soul. This is my healing, love and awakening to all. Thank you, dear Amir. Please feel into that message from Amir. Love and awakening to all. And if you are connecting here with us, you already are in that bubble of love and awakening that we sit in as we now welcome the message from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. This entire month, we are examining a very, very large subject. It's the love connection. That connection, dear ones, is so profound, it goes so many ways. We've told you that the energy which you call love is far larger than you understand or believe. So many of you can see that, understand that. But until you've experienced this love from Spirit, this love from your guides, as we've discussed, and all of these things, until you've truly experienced this, it's difficult to talk about. There are so many things that I could bring to you that tell you about the beauty that is there, almost for the taking. We told you last week that love is intrinsically there. It is built in and comes from the other side of the veil. That when you arrive on this planet, the image that you are of the Creator is love. And then the humanness starts to kick in, depending upon what you've been told, what your parents show you, the amount of love and care that you're given, all part of that growing up process that sometimes takes that essence away from its majesty. Most humans are learning it again in certain ways. This program is designed for that, a safe place for you to be in and learn what that truly might mean from Spirit. Again, as you drop into your heart, what is it that is there that perhaps is grander than anyone told you? Or perhaps there's an experience that will fill up that part of your body that needs and craves it so much to say, I want it all. I want it all. A month and a week or so ago, I gave a channeling in that wonderful place in Gaia called Monument Valley. Beautiful to look at, serene to be in. A place where when the wind stops, during the day or the night, sometimes you hear nothing. A silence that is so compelling that it draws you into the majesty of the earth. It's precious land, it's sacred land. It's part of the Navajo land. It's the Navajo Nation, and a place that we go to often now. But I gave this channeling in that pristine place, and I want to share it with you and review it with you. Even though this channeling is currently now available for all, in a place where this is free for all, in social media, in a website, in YouTube, perhaps even other places eventually. I want you to hear that which I said. And I want you to ponder the age that you're in and the shift that is beginning. You see, there's another love. There is a great missing piece that so few have truly found. I know who's listening, dear ones. There's an expression, preaching to the choir. I may be telling you what you already know, but you're not the only ones to find this channeling. For this will also be all over for those to hear for free. The missing piece. If you take a look at the doctrines of the planet, the ones in the spiritual systems of the planet, there's a missing piece. And that missing piece is so obvious, and yet in your modern times, somehow you've cast it aside. I spoke back then about the experiences that my partner has had on tours. And one of the biggest ones that sticks in his mind is where the shaman reaches down, picks up a handful of soil, holds it to his lips, and smiles. And when my partner asked him, "Why have you done that?" he said, "I have just been in touch with all my ancestors. For they are in the soil of the earth, all of them." I remembered even in my scripture that I learned as a child, dust to dust. My partner then realized how profound that truly was. The idea of the ancestors being in the planet is not what you were told, and yet they are. Multidimensionally, that soul energy that you have goes so many places when you're not here. The wisdom, the crystalline grid, all of the things that we've talked about that are part of this earth and this planet are built to enhance you. This planet knows who you are. It truly does. It's a sentient knowing. And most of the doctrines of this earth, right now, of this planet, of all of your cultures and societies, almost all that have the doctrines, never mention it, not one time. What if, dear ones, there was a great and grand love that pours from the earth, from so many sources? The Creator of all things made this planet specifically for you, designed it so that it's self-sustaining with water for you, so it tilts on an axis for your seasons, the engine of hot and cold for you. All of that on purpose, like no other planets, even in your solar system, designed for you. If you think about it, it was not an accident. This was a design so that when you arrived, it would not only be prepared, but there would be an energy of this planet for you to sense. And what is that energy? Go ask a tree hugger. Does the earth have a message? And that tree hugger will come back to you and say, every time I hug earth, there's bliss. I smile. I'm overwhelmed with the energy it has for me. What if we have missed this, the we being all of those on this planet who wish to be spiritual and connected? And there's this feeling that when you pass from this place, the souls go high up in the sky to some other place it's unreachable. What if instead it goes everywhere? What if all of your ancestors, the wise ones and not the wise ones, but all of them, when they pass over, take that mind of God and become their original soul beings? And that's what's in the planet as well. Have you ever thought of what I told you last week? The cave of creation that we have described so often to you is within the planet. Isn't that odd? That your Akashic record would be in Earth. Why isn't it somewhere in the sky, as you might say? That's a metaphor for not being here. That's a metaphor for perhaps being in heaven or wherever else that you might think. But it isn't. It's here. There are 3 places we have described that contain your Akashic record, and 2 of them are on the planet, and 1 of them is not. That ought to tell you a lot about what is in the planet. All that ever was and the consciousnesses that ever were are still in this planet. I described the crystalline grid so many times in past channels. It's a grid that's designed to feel human emotion. It was actually designed for you so that there would be places that you could go and feel past experiences that were wonderful. That you could know from the planet, perhaps, a love that you thought you only got then from the sky. That is a metaphor for the love of God. It's everywhere. There is so much of it. Have you heard the expression, as above, so below? That would mean that it comes from both sides. That the love of Spirit, that which you call God, that eternal source, that beauty, is also available pouring from your planet. There are so many who have trouble with this. They would say, "Dear Kryon, I know you've said that before, but I've never really been able to feel it." Let me ask you, how do you attempt to feel it? There's a great way. It's a simple way. I tell you, whether it's night or day, take off your shoes. And if you live in a place where there is not a forest or Gaia, then go to a place where there is. Almost all of you have some places that are parks or whatever. Take off your shoes. Take off your socks. Put your foot in the soil, the grass, whatever. And connect consciously to the earth. At this particular time, there's intent, there's grounding. And then listen, not for words. Listen for love. Crying out, how do I listen for love? Dear ones, don't make it complicated. Don't make it complicated. If love is in the air, it affects you. You hear it, you feel it, you smell it, you taste it. I've just given you full body experience for the love of earth. It will embrace you. And the thing it may say to you is this: finally, you found me. There is so much for you, for all of you, that perhaps you have not taken advantage of in the area of love. It comes from so many sources, including right next to you, the guides with you, the image that you were created in, and now even the earth. You're surrounded with it. There's no excuse. Listen, truly, there's no excuse for being a victim when there is so much that is trying to get through to you. Why don't you take my hand? Have you heard that before? As you cross into your soul, take my hand and feel the love that is all around you, pouring into you, that will completely and totally eliminate all of that which doesn't belong in the light. I am Kryon, in love with humanity. And so it is. There are generations of light workers, of those who have esoterics and metaphysical beliefs, generations, who have been waiting for some kind of an earth ascension. It seems to be everywhere in that which would be those spiritual systems as well. Even they are waiting for something. A demarcation point where masters come back and the lights are turned on and people ascend or whatever. Metaphysicians are not alone in this. They have expected this. When are we going to get our ascended earth? They ask. Let me tell you practically what this means.
What you've all been waiting for. It doesn't matter what your belief system is. You see, if it's in all the belief systems, you know there's a core of validity there. What are you waiting for? The answer is now. Right now. And some of you are starting to feel it. It's not a time where suddenly dozens of human beings, if not thousands of human beings, will vanish and go to the skies. Dear ones, what's going to vanish is old consciousness. Burned up, you might say, by the nodes and the nulls, or starting to be changed because consciousness starts to awaken to higher dimensions, better thinking, compassion, kindness, different ways of putting things together. You think it's crazy now? And what's going to show is dysfunction. Even more than it ever has before. How far can you tear things apart, dear ones, and not notice that you're dysfunctional? This awakening, this new Lemuria, begins in this time of the precession of the equinoxes. That's going to be explained later. There are a few years left that are enhancing years where much can be accomplished in this awakening. And this awakening is not pulling people out of their belief systems. It's going to enhance the belief system. Do you believe in God? What if God is bigger than you were told? Will you object? Some will. Some will say, I want my God to be as I was told. Dysfunctional. He's going to punish me later. That's my God. And that's only because that's what they learned and that's what they stick to and that's what they're comfortable with. And there's no judgment, dear ones, because there never is a judgment. There's only love. There's only love. Every single one in this room eventually will have a same experience of passing over the veil yet again into a place where you're going to say, don't let any surgeon bring me back. Keep the paddles away from my heart. I want to be here. And the here is not on earth. It's in that multidimensional place you call home, because that's where you belong. And you'll have an awakening even then. An awakening that says, I can hardly wait to get back because there's work to do on this planet, because this planet is starting to awaken to a higher truth, to higher dimensions. It's the way human beings treat each other that is going to start changing. But before it does, all of the dark things are going to creep out of the woodwork or the closet that you always knew were there, but nobody wanted to talk about. The biases, the actions, the systems that have been hidden from you, that collect young girls and have sexual slavery and have farms of babies just for that. Can you imagine anything more unconscionable than that, dear ones? Well, it's under your nose, and it's been going on a long time. And I'll say it again, it's coming forward, and you're going to see it. And some will say, you see where Earth has gone? This is just horrible. Not understanding. It's starting to show itself so you can clean it up. There's a lot of cleaning to do before the awakening will start to take hold in a way that you want, or in a way that makes sense to what you'd like. There are those who still feel, even in the religious systems, that a horn will blow and suddenly, overnight, everything will change. That has never been the way it has worked on this planet, dear ones. Sometimes it takes generations to change consciousness or biases. Many times. This is a new normal where there will be an acceleration of change and attitude. Where there will be some you thought would never change, but they have the wherewithal, the maturity of an old soul to look around and say, maybe, I wasn't told a complete truth. Maybe it's a bigger truth. Maybe. And what would those bigger truths be? And this is where it gets good. The core truth of the Creator, of how much you are loved or how magnificent you are in the eyes of God, was the original teaching on this planet as given in Lemuria and other places. But Lemuria was extra special because it was isolated. And you couldn't have a human population which was starting to grow come and visit or interfere. And so these truths that were taught rang with purity for thousands of years. It was almost like a launching pad that was Akashic, because a Lemurian who went through that never reincarnated in that Lemuria again. It was a training ground, you might say, a pure one that gave some core truths and processes and energies that got implanted in humanity, but especially those who were firstborn from the star mothers. Look at your scriptures. When was that target point when you were going to have trouble? Take a look. 2000. Only 12 years before that which is the 2012 shift, but well within the precession of the equinox 30-year period, 36-year period. That will be explained later. The prophecy of the Maya said the same thing. If humanity had not destroyed itself by that precession of the equinox's centering, 2012, December 21, that things would start to change. They dropped the old calendar and put up a new one because it was the end of an old era, a cycle. 25 to 26,000 year cycle. The indigenous knew this. They were on it. It's begun. The new Lemuria has begun. This is not the first meeting to begin it. It began when so many of you started to ask yourselves, what's going on? Is there more? Could it be that COVID was part of it? Of course it was. We've said this before. What happens when you have to stop everything and ponder your life? What happens when some of you are not allowed to go outside for a while? What happens when families are forced to be together, which is not typical? They're too busy to be together, and suddenly that's all they are, is together. What happens to relationships which are either on the edge or not on the edge, but suddenly you're forced together all the time? What happens to humanity when everything stops? This is a time of reflection. It's a time you will always remember where you were when you couldn't go outside, or when the new Lemuria started. Kryon, can you explain a little more about the timing of that, or what it means? The answer is, I would like to. But the way these things always work is that human beings have complete and total free choice. You can make it go as fast or as slow as you wish. How long will the population in this country decide to object and react instead of go into solution? That is unknown. But the objecting and the reaction is warranted in certain ways, because it's a frustration. All of those of you who have children have seen the frustration when something didn't change, or they wanted something so badly, and they would stamp their feet and they'd cry, and they would have to be carried around and whatever. That's the frustration in this population right now, because they know better. Things can change, and they don't want it to go back into the same old way, dear ones. They want change now. So it will indeed move into a solution cycle, instead of a dormant cycle where things simply come back. That's a big change. There's going to be change. from unexpected things, places, personalities. The same kind of changes. I told you years ago when I sat in a similar place and I said, you're going to get a new pope soon. And so many said, well, why? He's not sick. How could there be that? Well, he's still not sick. Not enough to die and be out of office. He resigned. A wild card, something that nobody expected, changes that no one can expect out of the box in order to allow another one in to start the new Lemuria. Look what he's done. In that which he can do, in the organization which he is in, and you may not be in that organization, but take a look. He's starting to identify dysfunction. He's starting to do the things that I am talking about while I sit in this chair right now. Because he knew that that church had to change. It had to come back to a heart-based. It had to come back to things that meant something. God had to get a little bigger. And that is the description. What is the new Lemuria? It is that which is a multidimensional enhancement of your knowledge of who you are in this universe, in this galaxy, on this planet. A sense of the magnificence that is yours today, and the departure completely, for the first time, from belief systems by billions that say you're a victim on the planet, that you don't deserve to have the love of God. That is the beginning of the new Lemuria. And that is what is going on as many start to understand and realize these things are bigger than you think. You think you've come to a meeting? It's bigger than that. Because you'll have aha experiences as you go. These are not things that you're going to be trained into. These are revelations for you to remember. And there will be those who see and hear what's being presented in these 2 days and will say, somehow I knew that. I feel that this is accurate and true. Somehow I knew that. Welcome, Starseed, to a start of a remembrance of that which was Lemurian. Were you all in Lemuria? No. You didn't have to be, because that core truth is your lineage as an old soul. If you were in Lemuria, you have it in your Akash because you lived it. If you were not in Lemuria, even if you came to this planet for the first time way after that, I'll tell you something. What is awakening now is the same core truth, because it's innate. It's in there, ready for you, old soul. So collect about you your wits, your maturity, your openness, your willingness to see or look or change. It's needed. It's necessary. Be open to the idea that the reality you live in is a very small portion of a much larger reality that is far more real than the 4D, the 4D you live in, the things you can touch and feel. And you think, this is my reality. Don't give me any of that, the stuff that's not there. And I'll tell you, the stuff that's not there, that's more real than this. Again, ask a physicist how many dimensions there are. It's increased yearly as more discoveries are made about how things work. Well, let me tell you how things work. Dimensionality is almost limitless, almost infinite, even in its description and definitions. Even if there were several hundred, how many exactly are you in? 4. Is it possible that you're still seeing in black and white in a color world? And the answer is, oh, yes. That's the beauty of the new Lemuria. Awakening into color and the beginning of a new kind of planet that will gyrate around for a while, and you won't understand what's going on, but some of you will see the trend toward maturity. The trend away from the dysfunction and the horror of some of the things that have been happening on this planet in the old energy for eons. Welcome to the new Lemuria. And so it is.
And with that, I invite you to close your eyes and connect in with what is happening internally. And I ask you to feel, sense, imagine, or visualize that you are a crystal. And this crystal that in this moment you are embodying, you have within you a time capsule. And within this crystal you embody, this time capsule begins to open and release. And you may even find that your crystal begins to pulse a little. You may even find yourself swaying just ever so subtly. This soft resonance that you are creating within your crystal. And this resonance and vibration that you are creating is that resonance of unconditional love and compassion that is in direct alignment with the Creator. And in this visualization or this feeling, this imagination, you begin to sense another crystal, but this other crystal is within a mountain. And the mountain is known as Mount Shasta. And within the mountain, that other crystal that you now feel and sense or visualize or imagine, it also has within it a time capsule that is beginning to open and release. And within that opening and release, the time capsule within the mountain begins to resonate and broadcast a frequency. And this frequency and vibration is the same resonance as the unconditional love and compassion of the Creator. And allow yourself, as the vibrating crystal, to now come into alignment and resonance with the crystal in the mountain. And as you feel, sense, visualize, imagine this entrainment, this resonance with the crystal, you realize there is nothing else to do in this moment other than be in that vibration.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. For those listening later, we sit in front of light workers, one of the few times that my partner would be brought to a group of like-minded individuals. I want to talk about the mountain. We are in that place that we call the shadow of the mountain of Mount Shasta. It is a special place to so many for so long. The indigenous held it as sacred. The mountain itself, as so many other mountains have been on this planet. But this one is different. If you have followed that which I have told you for many years, I will tell you that imbued into the mountain is the energy of core spiritual truth. There have been so many things happen there that are unexplainable to so many. It draws people to it more than just those who want to sit on a mountain. It speaks to so many who want to know answers to complex spiritual questions, ordinary questions. It attracts those who will sit and listen. It attracts those who want to spend the night, even if they're not supposed to. There have been many stories. Sometimes the park services, doing their job well, will close it off, and yet at night you will see a light sometimes as bright as an acetylene torch, brighter than any light should ever be, in a place that's inaccessible to any human. There are so many who have seen these kinds of things. They know there must be something there. Oh, there is. My partner told you you were at a special time, more special than you know or realize. I'm going to give you that information in a day or so. Something that I'll also reveal on the Circle of 12 that is broadcast. Something that is timely and for you, that's coming. But right now, I want to discuss something that is far out, hard to believe, mysterious, laughable to many. The concept of a star mother. The concept of those from the stars that may have actually started your DNA. Where you were humanoid with 24 pairs of chromosomes and it became 23 about 200,000 years ago. And science will verify that. When did a human being change and go for the standard 24 chromosomes to the unusual 23? 200,000 years ago. We teach that something happened then. Some of the indigenous teach something happened then. Information from the hills outside of Peru, with the indigenous that have been there for thousands of years, when we say, what happened originally? What is your creation story? And they pass along their language, translated into Spanish, translated into English, one word, intervention. They knew it. Those who are 50,000 years old in Uluru, who are still there from the same clan, they knew it. They claim it was the Pleiadians. Unusual, is it not? Those so long ago who never met one another have the same story about the same event. It's the same time frame coming from the same star system. I'll tell you, it's real. As far out as it may sound, as laughable as some people would make it. And the reason is because of consensus reality that my partner has taught today. None of you were told that. No spiritual leader ever told you that in any of the major religions that you grow up with. Any belief system that was organized on the planet, or even loosely organized, would go there. And so to you, it's an eye-rolling. Not to this group, but those who are listening later. Is it possible that there's something called a star mother, representing those who came, who birthed those who are here, who combined with the humanoids that were here to create a 23 chromosome human? Why? To give them Pleiadian DNA. So you are all hybrids, all of you. But there's something like a time capsule waiting to be revealed in you. And it's time. And I'll tell you about that this weekend. The star mothers first arrived several places on the planet, the most notorious, the one that was most pure, Lemuria. No one could get there, no one could leave. There was no influence from other humans over time, and so the purity of what was taught there stayed pure. It's time to teach it as well. My partner will reveal that as well this weekend to you. It is real. The idea of teachers from the stars, whereas many, many eons ago they revealed themselves, they were in physical form, they are not. They are now in that multi-dimensional place where they exist in many places on this planet, but specifically in those nodes that they came to originally. They're real. And those who would argue this point would say, well, if they're real, come on out. Show yourselves so we can believe it. And we would say to that person, really? So you don't have any kind of an esoteric mind at all that would believe in a multidimensional force or entity or a thing? And they would say, that's right. They don't. I can't see them, so they're not here. And I would say, how about angels? And there would be a pause. They say, well, that's a little different. How about God? And they'd pause. Well, that's a little different. What if those Pleiadian mothers were angels and you've been seeing them all along? What if they were guides to you and you've been seeing them all along, but they didn't step up and say, hi, I'm from Pleiades. All they did was sit and help you and love you and help you through hard times. I'll tell you what, there is a principle that this creative source that I represent will always say is number one. Number one, your love beyond measure. Period. Unconditional, period. Number two, there is no judgment and never has been. That's from men and women, not from God. Number three, you have absolute free choice to believe it or not. And nothing bad is going to happen if you choose to ignore it. Nothing. You can turn to Scripture, old Scripture, very old Scripture, even in your society, to see the story of the prodigal son. The one son that does everything right, the other son does everything wrong, and they go get the same party when they come home. And home is not a shack where they live on earth. Home is a metaphor for the other side of the veil from which they came. That's love. But here's what I'm going to tell you. That Star Mother group who is in the mountain, as you look at it right now, that Star Mother group is there. They know the name of every single one in this room and in the rooms adjacent who are not in this room. They know you're here. They always do. They know your soul name, a name you don't even know while you're here. They see the Creator inside you, and they do nothing until you do. That's free choice. And there are so many who would say, well, how do I activate the Star Mothers in my life, and how do I do this and that? What a linear group says those things. How do you think about ice cream? Write the list, will you? You just do it. I want an ice cream. Oh, I can taste the ice cream. Sit in a place, if you've never done it before, and say to yourself, to anyone listening, whoever you are, if you're there, I invite you, with my unbelief, I invite you to be with me. Not to show yourself, not a picture, not on Facebook. To come into my life, my area, and start invading my intuition so I will have the right decisions at the right time. Show me your love, Star Mother. And then watch your life start to change. Star Mothers are not prophets, they're helpers. The nodes and the nulls of the planet were set up, are you ready? By them when they arrived, just in case this time of the precession of the equinoxes would have created exactly what's happening now. Do you feel the specialness of this? You sit not only in a precious, sacred time that the ancients said may never happen, or it could. A time which showed itself even on the prophecy rock of the Hopi. You sit there. That's the big divide, you might call it. Where the prophecy was, many humans would go one way, others would go another way, and choice would be there between light and dark. It's here. The choice is here. And this is when the capsules start to open. And this is where the activation occurs, pouring out that which can be commensurate with your consciousness if you want it. And yet there still would be those who say, well, I don't know. I don't know how. I just told you how. And my partner just showed you why you don't want to. Because it goes against everything you were told. Let me give you some information. Your parents, your pastors, your priests, your spiritual guiders here on earth, they didn't know this. They didn't know this. They gave you the very best information they had with love and integrity. It's not going to be a betrayal if you go toward the truth. There was a core truth that is known today that involves pure love from the Creator coming down into your lives and working that which is called miracles to some, which is going to change humanity, put light on the planet to a place where there will never be a war like you see right now. It's unconscionable even now, and it wants to pull you back to the 40s. Did you notice? A surprise, did you notice? What perfect timing to prove what I'm telling you. It's not over. There are other things that will pop up to interrupt the light. Interrupt it. Put a stick in it and stir it up, even in the New Age. Stir up the New Age so they won't like each other anymore. That's going to happen too. Get ready for it. And when it shows up, bless it and say, show me what to do next. In all love, show me what to do next. In all love, show me what to do next. This is right on schedule, dear ones. Right on schedule. Don't think the world is now going the other way because what I told you would happen is happening. Star Mother, show yourself in the lives of those who want to start to be infused with peace. Peace first. That's the first thing that happens. Not the solving of your problems, the peace over it. So you can sit there and be a wise human being and make good decisions. Not out of survival or fright, fear. It starts now. It really does. And you couldn't be in a better place for a life change, for healing, for revelation, for change to the better. You're sitting in the shadow of the mountain. Wow. I'm crying in love with humanity. And so it is.
So this is a time for us to really tune into ourselves. And earlier I mentioned that we have one of our hosts joining us from the other side of the veil. And to me, I would like to begin this first meeting together to invite the multitudes of soul family that are connected to each of us to descend upon us now and be with us for the entire weekend. And we want to create that energetic posture of receiving every soul that has been connected with us and our lives to come and let us feel them in a close way and be part of this weekend. So with that, I invite you to close your eyes and take a moment to quiet the beautiful mind you have, that wonderful supercomputer of yours that takes in information and puts them in order in a beautiful, logical way, because that's the role of our mind. Our mind is beautiful. It wants information. It loves being busy. It loves solving puzzles. And so we want to just acknowledge that mind and how wonderful it is. But now we're just going to ask that mind to be a little more quiet. It can just take a seat in the background as we allow ourselves to connect more with our intuition. Because our intuition comes to us more in silence, during quiet time. It often whispers to us. And through that quiet time, those whispering moments, we may even feel the whispers of those that we have loved that are no longer here physically with us. Those whispers are that we never left your side. We are always with you. And so we invite those who are always with us to come a little closer and to give us signs that we can recognize, unique to our own specific circumstance of what we need to see, hear, or feel, or connect with in order to receive that communication. And as we do this, we send out into the field that we are all connected, so that those who are not aware of this process may experience a synchronistic event to let them know that that loved one is still with them, still connecting in the spiritual realm. It is one of the beautiful love stories that we have, that we are eternal and we are never alone. And so with that eternalness, that connection, let us now invite the magnetic master, Kryon, who has always told us that you are never alone. Let's invite Kryon to come and give us a message.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner has just presented to you the possibility that hiding all around you are formulas that you never grasped, that you never really learned, that you never really saw. This is the shift. Something that has been predicted by the ancients. An energy that has to do with astronomy, astrology. The energy of civilization. Right on time it is. Tomorrow I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the timing. Not the timing of the shift, but the timing of your soul. But it's a time where things that were hidden start to be revealed. Sometimes we label the year you're in, and this one was called the year of revelation. But wait a moment, so was the last one. And so it's the linear mind of the human that says, well, every year there should be another energy. Not so. This shift is about revelation. Not just the revelation of the things that have been hiding, sometimes the revelation of what has not been hiding, but is then there in a stronger way. Duality, human nature, will change. And this has always been controversial because all of that you have learned says human nature is a nature which is static. And that human nature is responsible, therefore, for this and this and this and this and this. And those who study this, whether they're psychiatrists or psychologists or just scientists, looking at consciousness, have taken that particular phrase, human nature, and made it a law, almost like Newton. This is the way it works. Therefore, we will revolve all of that which we know around it and all of the helps of humanity around it and all of the things that are wrong around it. And that then becomes a focal point which never changes. What if it does? 4 years, we have given you scenarios of the future. A future that many say, well, we know Kryon is the Pollyanna channel. Kryon is the one who is always saying things will get better. Dear ones, you've just gone through 50 years of no world war. That is a marker. You've gone through so many things that you thought you would never see. These are markers, but they happen slow. So there's no celebration of light that is coming to the planet. Suddenly, you have a difference, and you know what I'm talking about, and I will discuss that tomorrow. But in these things, how many of you are starting to recognize a shift and a change in the way this planet thinks and what it wants? And now that the planet can all talk to each other instantly, it makes a difference. There are some who will look at technology and say it's the worst thing that ever happened. And then there are others who are a little wiser who will say, suddenly we can see one another. It was only 70 years ago, or perhaps a little more, in the midst of a world war. Part of that war was you couldn't see each other. You were just told about the other one. You didn't know who they were. You didn't see their families or their faces. You just knew about their leadership and what they'd done. And now it's all changed. It goes beyond politics. It goes beyond anything that existed 70 years ago. Well, now you can face off with those who look just like you, speak another language, but it doesn't matter because it's instantly interpretable. And you can see their children, and you can see what they want and what they don't want. And suddenly, there is a consensus of reality of light. You're starting to see that. I'll give you more information tomorrow. But the big question is, what might be hiding for you right now, as you sit there, as you listen there? Could there be something that has been potential for you all along? But through your culture, your society, what you've been told, what you've learned, it either has been suppressed or you've told it's simply not there. It's a time to rethink everything you've been told. I invite everyone to analyze the messages of Kryon, to see if it is something that is a trickster, perhaps, or a cult, perhaps. To analyze the messages and see if they ask you to do anything but love each other. If they ask you to do anything but awaken to a higher compassionate self. Everything that I have ever given you has been an invitation for self-discovery. And when you find what's really hidden, you say, oh my, no one ever told me. That essence of you, not the body, not the mind, that essence of you, which is the soul, has no beginning and no end. That which is the real you is a piece of the Creator, a part of God. There are so many belief systems on this planet that tell you that, and in the next breath, they violate it by a punishing, horrible, dysfunctional God instead of a full, loving, compassionate, unconditional God. You know these things because you are part of it, but the soul has always been hidden. That's the biggest thing that hides. I told my partner some time ago to start a series of programs of teaching, of channeling, of meditation that reveals something that has been hidden. Your ability to touch the face of God. Your ability, no matter what you've been told by any spiritual leader, to be in touch with your own essence, your own soul. It's what we're going to do today, to cross a bridge into that place. That is the revelation, the biggest revelation. Each individual has far more than you were ever told you have. And in that, you start to realize that that power of consciousness you have, which has often been defined as perhaps a thinking which was positive thinking and a pat on the head and says, I hope you have a nice life, thinking those things. What if thinking those things is an energy that goes into the ethers, into the field, and actually changes something on the other side of the planet? And now there is proof that it does. What if that energy was something you could tap into that was universal, it was huge, that it had a bigger potential than the consciousness of any human being? What if it was literally the consciousness of the Creator in you, starting to send light and compassion, kindness around the world to those who need it right now, needed to be soothed right now, need to be helped right now? That's powerful. I'll say something to you that I'll say tomorrow as well. You're comfortable right now. Oh yes, there are those here, and I know who they are, who have things perhaps that are pending, that they're concerned about, or grieving about, or worried about. But in general, you're not hungry. You're in comfort. The temperature is good. And you've come to a place where you can listen and perhaps enjoy each other in a spiritual way. There are millions right now on this planet who don't have that, who are just like you, who have those who are partners they love, who have children they love, and they're in trouble. What if all of them could feel a little bit of what is in this room right now? What if what's hiding is that which is the energy here, which is mature and knows more than most? That you can send this to those in need, and what they will receive is peace over the condition that they're in. Perhaps for a few moments they can stop wringing their hands and worrying and crying and grieving. And for a few moments they can raise their hand and they say, I don't know where this came from, but thank you. That for a moment or two, I can feel like I'm in front of a beautiful stream with the sun shining and all is well. That's what's hiding. For them, for you. But you are the mature ones, the old souls, the light workers, who can take what you have and share it in a way that this planet right now needs more than any other time, perhaps than you've even been alive. That's why you're here. People have said, what is next? I have given you what is next. And the reason that you keep asking what is next is because you don't believe it. You don't believe the sun's going to come out or there's light at the end of the tunnel. Even though these last years have shown you things you never thought you would see. Not technical, but consciousness. And the solutions of certain kinds of issues and problems and inappropriatenesses. It's all there for you to look at. The shift
is here. That's who you are. That's why you came. I'll tell you a little more about that tomorrow. But dear ones, the revelation of these times is not the revelation of darkness or the revelation of any of the other things that are here to be revealed or inventions. It's the revelation of your own soul's majesty, of a magnificence you have when you were born. You were not born dirty. You were born magnificent. That's the revelation. Take that and develop it. What does it mean? What can you do? The speaker this day will show and tell a little more about that. Things that are hidden, that can be revealed. Things perhaps that you need to hear from those who are teaching it and have been revealing it for a very long time. That's what's going on this planet that I wanted to tell you about in this moment. And tomorrow there'll be more. I'm crying in love with humanity, and for good reason. And so it is.